Peter, it's Mayor Brown just testing my audio. I'll be in the chambers in about 20 minutes, but wanted to make sure this was working for now.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. You're coming through loud and clear. Yeah. Today is Committee of Council, so Councillor Tour is chair.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Committee of Council meeting. And we were going to get started right away, but now that Chair Tour has arrived, I will go back to my other seat.
Thank you. Sorry to keep everyone waiting. Okay, good morning, everyone. As we begin today's meeting, we would like to acknowledge that we are gathering here today on the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and before them the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Huron, and Wendat. We also acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and other global Indigenous people that now call Brampton their home. We're honored to live, work, and enjoy their land. Good morning and welcome to our meeting of Brampton's Committee of Council. All members that are present here today with Mayor Brown, Councillor Fortini, present online, and Councillor Maduro is online as well. Our next item is approval of the agenda. Do any members wish to add a business item for today's meeting? I'll have Councillor Santos first.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, this is a little bit of a last-minute add to the agenda with respect to Pride Month and the previous motion of painting the crosswalk in downtown Brampton. So just following up on that, given it's Pride Month.
So through you, Chair, to members of the committee, that would be proposed item 9.3.1 under Corporate Services section.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Santos and Deputy Mayor Singh.
I'd like to add a camera item of talk to the clerk pending negotiations.
So through you, Mr. Chair, that item I understand has been vetted through the city solicitor
Sorry,
in
so the city
accordance with the council procedure bylaw, and it would be proposed item 15.2, closed session on today's agenda, an open meeting exception under section 239(2)K of the Municipal Act, a position plan procedure criteria or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk, and thank you, Deputy Mayor Singh.
Mayor Brown's on the board.
And Mayor Brown's online as well.
It's just like to add an item related to International Yoga Day.
Could you please repeat that?
I'd like to add an item related to International Yoga Day.
Was
International.
that International Yoga Day?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So through you, Mr. Chair, then perhaps that would be an item under Community Services section, so it would be new business item 11.3.3. I presume it's a discussion item and not an announcement, or
Mayor Brown, is that an announcement?
No, it's a discussion item.
Thank you. And are there any more additions to this agenda? Okay, we have a motion moved by Councillor Power to approve the agenda. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, and that motion carries. Do any members have a declaration of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act for any matter to be considered on today's agenda? Seeing none, the clerk will so note for the meeting minutes. Committee, as part of our consent motion, I will read each agenda item that is subject to the consent motion, and any member may verbally identify the item to be held for debate during the meeting. Any item not held for debate will be considered as part of the consent motion and voted on for approval. I'll start reading the relevant agenda items, and members can identify any items to be held for debate. Item 10.2.1, staff report regarding budget amendment and request to begin procurement, energy retrofit of Earnscliffe Recreation Center, Ward 7. That's held by Councillor Pelletier. Item 10.2.2, staff report regarding request to begin procurement, preventative and demand maintenance services for heating, ventilation, and cooling equipment at various city locations for a 3-year period. That's in consent. 10.2.3, staff report regarding request to begin procurement, installation, repair, and dismantling services of air-supported structures, sports domes at various city facilities for a 3-year period. In consent. 11.3.1, minutes of the Brampton Senior Citizens Council, May 2023. In consent. Held for delegation and discussion item 11.3.2 is discussion item at the request of Regional Councillor Vicente regarding development of a citywide litter cleanup program. Item 15.1, open meeting exception under section 239 2C and K of the Municipal Act. That will be held by Councillor Santos. The clerk will summarize those items held by members for consideration or not part of the consent motion prior to the approval of the motion.
through you, Mr. Chair, I'll just, for simplicity, I'll identify the 3 areas to be considered as part of the consent approval motion. 10.2.2, the staff report to begin procurement on preventative maintenance services for heating, ventilation, and cooling equipment at various city facilities for a 3-year period. 10.2.3, a staff report to begin procurement for installation, repair, and dismantling services of air-supported structures, sports domes at various city facilities for a 3-year period. And 11.3.1, minutes from the Brampton Senior Citizens Council meeting of May 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I have a motion moved by Councillor Keenan to approve the consent motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, and the motion carries. Moving on to announcements. Our next item is item 5.1, an announcement regarding Filipino Heritage Month. Joining us today is Romulo Sinajan. There's a lot of names. And members of the Knights of Rizal Central Canada, Brampton Filipino Seniors Club, and Federation of Filipino Canadians of Brampton. and Trinidad Cala, my apologies for not pronouncing your last name correctly, and Nori Blom, Alliance of Ladies of Knights of Rizal. Councillor Santos is the sponsor of this announcement, and welcome to the speakers.
Hi, good morning.
Sir, please step on forward here.
Hello, good morning. My name is Romulo Sinajon. I represent the Knights of Rizal, an international-based organization based in Manila. Because this month is a Filipino Heritage Month. Today we're inviting you to the different events that we are showing for this month's Heritage celebration. On June 11, we have the Philippine Independence Day Halo-Halo Party, which will be here in Brampton City Hall at about 10 o'clock. And then we have also a flag raising ceremony. And then by June 17, we will be having a gala night in honor of the unveiling of Rizal bus, which is probably now finished. This bus unveiling will be held on June 18 at 10 o'clock at 15 Sarno Road. So the gala night will be on June 18 at 6 o'clock. Everybody is invited, but the fee is about $85 per person. And after that, the next day, Sunday, will be the unveiling of the Rizal bus at 15 Sarno Road. Everybody also is invited. There's a program and some refreshments afterwards. So please join us in celebrating our Filipino Heritage Month. We have also a Taste of Asia Food Festival. Will be held at Bathurst and Wilson. Everybody is invited there. There's about 150 food stalls that's going to be opened up at that particular time. This will be held on June 23 to 24. Thank you very much. Together with me is my fellow organizations here at Brampton Seniors Association, held by Nori and Ed Lim. We have the Filipino Federation of Brampton by Michael Arojado, and we have the Alliance of Ladies of Rizal, Lady Ineng Calajo. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for that announcement. We have a few speakers on board. Councillor Santos.
Thank you through you, Mr. Chair. Magandang umaga sa inyo lahat at maraming salamat. I just said good morning, everyone, and thank you very much in Tagalog. And that's probably the most Tagalog that I actually know, unfortunately. I do understand it, but I have a hard time speaking it. And today is actually also my mother's birthday. And I share that as an opportunity because she is part of the reason why I'm Filipino and celebrating Filipino Heritage Month very proudly. So happy birthday to my mom. I want to say really thank you to our growing community, our Filipino community in the city of Brampton and across the region of Peel. We are one of the fastest growing communities in the region. And as I see our growth, I'm seeing the community get more and more organized. And over the past weekend, I was celebrating with the Brampton Filipino Seniors Club, who's here today as well. And we were all celebrating with the Federation of Filipino Canadians of Brampton, as well as Knights of Rizal, and the Alliance of Ladies of Knights of Rizal were there partying on Saturday night, line dancing, all the seniors celebrating their 36th anniversary in the city of Brampton. And so I want to say congratulations to all of you. We are doing amazing work together to highlight the beautiful culture and celebrate the beautiful heritage that we have and the contribution that we make in the city of Brampton. Mabuhay, maraming salamat. And at the end of all of this, I would love for all members of council to join us in taking a photo as well.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Santos. And We're very excited to also have this bus in our in a park that is in Wards 9 and 10. So very proud of that. Did you request for the photo now? Yeah. Okay. Thank you once again for that announcement. Our next item is item 5.2, an announcement regarding Ontario Crossing Guard Appreciation Week, which is June 5th to the 9th, 2023. Joining us today is Shane Loftus, Manager for Transportation, Right-of-Way and Safety, Public Works and Engineering. Councillor Broad is the sponsor for this announcement. Welcome, Shane.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and recognize the crossing guards across the city. For those that I haven't met personally, I'm Shane Loftus, the Manager of Transportation, Right-of-Way and Safety, and with me is my colleague Violet Skirton, the Crossing Guard Supervisor. The week of June 5th to 9th is School Crossing Guard Appreciation Week in Brampton and across Ontario. School crossing guards play an essential role in the communities they serve, helping children travel across busy streets safely. There are 244 crossing guards within Brampton who serve students from kindergarten to grade 5 in both the Peel District School Board and the Dufferin Peel Catholic District School Boards. A little piece of information for those that may be in attendance or watching the live feed. So, under the Highway Traffic Act, a crossing guard's stop sign has the same legal authority as a stop sign at an intersection. Drivers who fail to stop could face a minimum $150 fine and 3 demerit points to their license. When you encounter a school crossing guard, please make sure that you stop when the crossing guard has their arm in the upright position, stop when the guard is entering the roadway, and remain stopped until children and the crossing guard have safely cleared the roadway. And just another FYI, if anyone is interested in becoming a crossing guard within the city of Brampton, they can visit the employment site. There is a link directly for crossing guards, or they can call the crossing guard telephone line. Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. I have Councillor Vicente on the board. But Councillor Broad is the sponsor for the announcement, so Councillor Broad.
Thank you, Shane, for that, for the announcement. It's important to see the Ontario crossing guards are hardworking and their dedication. Thank you for keeping our children safe. And it's important to know they're the first ones there when the school opens. And everyone's rushing, and they're the ones there, you know, and protecting our children. So it's a really important job. So thank you again to all the crossing guards in Ontario.
Thank you, Councillor Broad. And moving on to our next item is item 6.1, a delegation from Angelina Carrera, Brampton resident, regarding proposal to mitigate displaced garbage. Welcome, Angelina. You have up to 5 minutes.
morning, councillors. Good morning, Mayor Brown, and the community as well. My name is Angelina Carrera. Today, I would like to propose to mitigate displaced garbage in the city of Brampton. We do have a lot of it, and we'll show you the problem, the analysis, and of course, the solutions. Next page, please. Thank you. So let's identify the problem. So we've had a growth of the city population since 2012 of 39%. That's not the problem. We need people in our city. We need to encourage businesses and keep the city booming. So it's a positive thing. It helps job placement, but it is also the highest contributing factor to displaced garbage. And what I mean by that is more people equals more garbage. The evidence in the communities, if you walk the streets, if you go and look at the businesses and all of the parking lots, if you look at our green spaces, you will see displaced garbage everywhere. Next screen, please. These pictures are from many of our pals, many local communities who are cleaning up our city. The garbage affects our wildlife, as you can see. Yes, we actually did find a mouse inside of a can. We have seen all of the garbage in our green spaces, wildlife, public property, and private property, which does not present a good image of the city of Brampton. Next page. So the solution, we need all residents of Brampton to be held accountable. And it's unfortunate, but true. Not sure what happened with my slide there, but people hold accountability when three things happen. The first thing is that they are educated and they have that knowledge and know what to do when bylaws are enforced by the city. And there is a financial impact. Unfortunately, that is true. We tend to do things when it hits our pocket. These three things, recycled, as you can see, equal accountability. Next slide. So the proposing solutions are for three areas, as discussed: the community itself, all of our business areas, and the public green spaces. Next slide. So this is pretty verbose. There are some repetitive items, which is great because you will see that the city can spend one thing, one suggestion, and it will fit most of the molds. So the causes in the community, well, the population has increased, as I suggested. There are rental properties that have increased that include more than one family under one roof, which is not a problem, but unfortunately, it causes effects. There are not enough garbage bins within those homes, and those homeowners need to do that. And there's an increased lack of care for property because those people don't own those properties. The effects, so bins are not stowed properly, bins are spilling over with garbage. That garbage goes onto other people's properties. People don't care because they are looking at other people's properties. And of course, unfortunately, people are leaving the city and really not happy with their neighbors, not happy with the city itself. The solution is education, enforcement by laws, and of course, a financial impact. For those who are offending, 0, 1, and 2 times, the plan is to give them those warnings, and then the third plus time, those offenders must pay some sort of fine, and the fines will increase every time. Next slide, please. The business areas. So we also must ensure that the parking lots are cleaned up in a timely manner. I've seen multiple malls where the bins are just constantly overflowing. I don't know if they have people who are hired to clean their areas multiple times per day, but I don't see it happening. The solution is to ensure that they understand the health and safety rules, for their people who come and shop at their places. They hold their own responsibilities and follow the bylaws of the city. The city, in my suggestion, should be proactive. So ensure you go out to those properties on a daily basis and look at the people who are not cleaning up. It's a financial impact to them. Fines would be hefty to those businesses. Next. And finally, public spaces, which is similar to the community solutions as well. People who have who have agreed to clean up the green spaces, they are not doing that. We need to hold them accountable. We need to hold the community accountable to keeping those spaces clean. I'm running out of time, so I'm rushing, but my suggestion is to put QR codes on the bins, the personal bins, the public bins, to help people report a bin that needs to be emptied faster, and of course, gives them education on what needs to go where. Thank you.
Thank
So
you,
edu-
Angelina. I have
Yes.
Councillor Santos on the board.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much for coming in to delegate today. It's, I don't know if it's a coincidence or not a coincidence that
was.
PAL, People Against
It
Littering,
was.
is also here. But given we are talking about a clean and green city, whether that's you as a resident and your observations in your own neighborhood, or Suzanne White, who I met with yesterday, who lives in downtown Brampton, who actually shared the exact same thing you're talking about, or People Against Littering, who just this past week on 2 community cleanups, we were chatting about the same issue, cleaning up in green spaces, but also along corridors and transit stops. The challenge that we're facing in our city is, like you said, is going to require all of these people coming together at the same table. Your solutions that you've presented today are a slightly different or additional to what People Against Littering has been doing. Like, and People Against Littering does not have access to private property. Or like the overflowing bins on garbage day, like today on my street. And so I think when we get to the People Against Littering delegation and the motion that's coming forward, you are another reminder that this takes a very collective approach, and the city needs to bring all of these stakeholders to the table to gather a lot of these different ideas, because you have a different perspective. I was saying to Suzanne White yesterday when I was having a meeting with her, she notices things in her community, like you've pointed out, that if I'm driving by, biking by, walking by, not on a daily basis like you, I wouldn't necessarily think it's bad. But because you see it every single day, it becomes a problem within your local neighborhood. So I guess my first question, because I'm supposed to ask a question, Michael's looking at me, giving me a look. Did you know about People Against Littering?
Yes. I'm
Okay,
a
good.
part of that
Did you
group
know
as
they were
well.
delegating today?
I did at the last minute.
Okay, good. And thank you for coming, because you bring that additional perspective that complements some of the work that we have been doing with People Against Littering. My question to staff, if we can just clarify, which you may not know, is some of the work we've been doing on proactive bylaw enforcement. And so just maybe an update from Paul Morrison on what the status is of how we are more proactively enforcing property standards. And we've also looking to implement a licensing landlords program, which also speaks to a bit of the education piece. So just a question to you, do you know about this stuff we're doing on proactive? Okay, so therefore, staff, if you can please share the status of that.
Thank you, Councillor Santos, through you, Mr. Chair. Great presentation. One of the things that resonates with me is the fact that it's that education piece that always has to. We can go out and enforce all we want, but if we can't educate, we can't get people into the practice of properly disposing of refuse, we're not going to win this battle. So I've asked JP to come, and JP's got a lot of our stats. We do a lot of proactive things, and I'll probably talk a little bit more after that.
Good morning. Through the chair, I just wanted to, as Paul stated, thank you for the presentation. It's certainly very informative, and it helps us certainly looking at their other avenues to enforce the current bylaw and how we can do to improve it. We implemented a proactive property standards enforcement, as Councillor Santos has mentioned. We've identified specific properties that are repeat offenders, those that have many complaints of refuse and long grass. Those properties are identified, and we specifically attend those locations on a regular basis to ensure that they are complying with the bylaws. When they fail to do so, we issue a penalty notice for $250, And should they refuse to comply in relation to garbage and refuse or long grass, we bring a contractor to clean up and cut the grass at that point. So that's ongoing as we speak. And once we've received compliance from a particular property owner, we remove them from our a list of active properties. So for example, in 2023, we've, in terms of refuse on private property, we've investigated 1,922 complaints. This is the number of complaints that we've actually attended, investigated, and in occasions laid charges. Garbage containers, so those that are not placing the garbage containers in a proper locations, which should be on the side yard or inside the garage, so far we've 800 complaints that we've investigated. We've added additional staff or summer students to help us with the refuse and long grass. So we've got additional students this summer that are helping us, supporting our current property standards officer to deal with these specific concerns. The other aspect we're looking at when it comes to fail to remove refuse, graffiti, storage, garbage containers and whatnot, in 2023 we've laid 875 penalty notices at a cost of $250 per penalty notices. So we've issued 67 warnings in 2023, and we continue to encourage property owners to comply with the bylaws.
Thank you, JP, and through you, Mr. Chair. How many charges out of that 1,900 do we know were actually put through?
Well, 1,900 were complaints that we received, and we laid 874
charges. Okay.
Penalty notices. We've issued penalty notices to.
And so I think, and also back to the delegate as well, and I see Councillor Keenan's name on the board because many of his residents in his neighborhood in Peel Village also prompted a lot of this work. Why is it important, JP, as we're being more proactive with our enforcement of property standards? Why is it important for residents to still make sure that they report what they see or issues?
Through the chair, proactive is something we do on a regular basis. So we attend to an exterior property standard exterior complaint, for example. If we see there's a long grass next door, proactively we will issue an order for these individuals to cut the grass and pick up their refuse. So we can't be at every houses. We can't be driving around just looking for those things. We're just the volume of calls is too high for this at this point. So we highly encourage residents to continue to report those complaints, because once we look at our stats, we're looking at the number of complaints we receive for particular residents, then we put them on our proactive list. Then not that we target, but we certainly focus a lot more of attention on that particular resident until such time as they comply.
And I think also it creates a bit of hotspots and different neighborhoods and hotspots. In my conversation with Suzanne White yesterday, we were talking about this with respect to culture. If your neighbor and the neighbor's neighbor and the neighbor's neighbor have their grass that's unkept and garbage everywhere, that actually encourages a culture of not maintaining your property. And so when we see clusters of residents or neighborhoods that have houses that don't maintain their property, it's great because then you're able to go there and start to correct that behavior. And so I wanted to share that with you because your ideas are fantastic, and obviously, you know, it complements some of the stuff that People Against Littering is doing, but I wanted to share staff's update so that you know that we are doing some of this work in the meantime. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Santos. Thank you, JP. I still have Councillor Paleshi on the board. The question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Angela, for Angelina for coming. Angelina, have you met Bill Godfrey? I'm a part of PAL. You are a part of PAL. Oh, fantastic. Okay. So am I. Bill used to coach me in baseball when I was younger. But he always says that I never listened in baseball. Angelina, and I'm glad that Councillor Santos talked about some of the garbage that, you know, homeowners aren't addressing. But I think in one of your slides, and we always kind of mention the bins that are out in our parks too are an issue. Not only the type of bins, because they're the old, cheap drum bin that, wind can get into, pull out, raccoons can get into and pull out, or people can come and dump. And we have these bins on kind of a schedule where we go out to clean them up, but there's definitely some inconsistencies when, in terms of somebody coming, and I see it all the time, somebody comes to a bin and dumps some extra garbage, but then that bin isn't on the rotation. So, I think there are opportunities where we as a community need to be able to, and I think the 311 app is a good tool to be able to use, snap a picture of this bin, send it in, then we know that, we need to get to it before that rotation. But I think, and education is a huge part of it, but we as a city, I think, need to ensure that, when people do dump, and we represent the rural area where we have a tremendous amount of dumping in, the farm lane back roads of Wanless Heritage, and the farmers are quick to call. And I don't know if residents in the area, I want them to be quick to call as well. When I travel I was just on Sandalwood, east of McLaughlin the other day, and I had seen a bag of garbage, so we all just thrown on the side of the road, so I put the call in, and then the next day when I went through, that bag had been ripped open, that garbage had spread. Right, so that's kind of that. So I'm with you, whatever we can do to help support, and Councilor Barr and myself put forward a motion during budget to see what we can do with PAL, and I know Ed Fegan has been working on that as well, and there's actually, funny enough, there's a similar motion on today's agenda as well, so look forward to trying to get there.
For sure.
But with people like yourselves and PAL, I think we will.
If I could quickly comment.
For sure.
At the time. Thank you, and thank you for your statistics and whatnot. I'm hoping that the charges are laid on the homeowners, or maybe it is also the tenants, I'm not really sure on property owner, thank you. But I think that, and I didn't really get to get to it, but I think summer students, and I know you're backlogged in how many people you have to hire to drive around. You said you can't really drive around the city. Honestly, I think it is doable if we have summer students doing that. They don't approach the owners because you wouldn't want them to be, get in some sort of altercation, but have them drive around, and it's obvious, for those who have bins right in front of their house that are already overspilling, they can actually, take pictures and load them up to 311 themselves. Personally, I'm exhausted from using that app. I know it in and out. And some of the times the messages I receive back saying either we're not sure if it needs to move forward or it has been resolved. It's kind of a vague message, so I'm not sure if my ticket is actually being addressed. But I seem to keep repeating the same submissions on the same homes on a weekly basis.
So that's you're not the first person that's ever said that to me, either whether calling or using the 311 app. I know that 311 is working on that, through legislative services as well. We're going to be changing some things, and I don't know if it's moving fast enough yet, but hearing this today, I think it's time to start moving on this a little bit quicker. Thank you for your delegation.
Thank you, Councilor Palashi and Councilor Keenan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your delegation and your presentation. It really hits the mark. I don't think, maybe people are saying that we're talking a lot about garbage, but I think as Bill always says, you can never talk too much about it. It's not until everybody hears about it that knows what kind of a situation that we have. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the downtown BIA representatives that are here today and the issues that they struggle with. So yes, my community and Peel Village struggle with it a lot, which is really pushing some of the narrative, but so is our downtown. At our recent town hall, we heard a lot about garbage there as well. And I love the solutions. I wrote down QR codes. I think it's a very smart, new age way to log complaints. And I don't know that, if we as a city can, put those on our bins, or if we can implement something to, I think we're talking a lot about residential properties, and that we're coming up with solutions on property standards and, in our neighborhoods. But we have a massive issue with businesses as well.
Absolutely.
And that's where we can't miss the mark. And we need to be paying attention to that. We can, we'll start to solve some problems with our neighborhoods, and as time goes on, we will get better. But I really like the business and focusing there, and maybe, do we standardize QR codes on business bins, where we can have that complaint come in, and maybe it's not to us, maybe it's to whoever's the bin or the property owner, or I don't know what it looks like, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say that this is now something that I'm going to definitely be looking at with staff to see if it's something that can be done. I think it's important. I think that the business part now is something that we need to be paying close attention to. So I do thank you for this. And my question is, did you finish your presentation? I know you ran out of time.
Kind of ran through it. I mean, it's more.
You got through it. I just want to make sure, because it was so good, I just want to make sure that we're not missing anything.
There's some more suggestions, but the pickers suggestion, to have pickers in parks. I've seen it on beaches.
To have what in parks, sorry?
Litter picker-uppers, the little tools.
Oh, yeah.
Pickers. I've seen it on beaches. It seems to work well. You have a little caddy that holds them, and people clean up after everybody else, so.
Yeah, and I have been out quite a bit with PAL and other institutions that are doing park pickups, to the point where I actually went and purchased my own, so I have it in my garage now, which I'm happy about. Councilor Pleasure, you used it with me in one of the creeks not too long ago. But yeah, so I think that's another great suggestion. I definitely am gonna look through this a bit more to pick up on some other stuff with my conversations with staff. So thank you very much for your delegation.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Keenan. I have Councillor Santos with one more question.
I'm sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. The other important piece that I think we should get an update on is actually how we are trying to empower local neighborhoods to help beautify and clean up their local neighborhoods. And so I know that Rasmeen from the Community Safety Office is online. We have something called the Nurturing Neighborhoods program. We are also trying to encourage local neighborhoods to form neighborhood associations and then help them access eventually a granting stream at the city to help beautify their local neighborhoods. So Rasmeen, can you provide an update on that? And then finally, I'd like to refer this to staff as part of the consultation process related to this item moving forward. So Rasmeen?
Hi, thank you. Through the chair, happy to provide a quick update on it. We're actually coming to council with a report June 21st to address the referred matter regarding measures of beautification of local neighborhoods, as Councillor Santos mentioned. This report will also accompany a neighborhood association guide. That's a tactic identified in our community safety action plan under neighborhood associations. And really this will focus on organizing and activating neighborhood groups and empowering them to take action as they see fit in their own neighborhoods. So we will be supporting these groups and providing different resources and options and some financial opportunities as well to create an action plan and to really set their priorities for their area and then to take action. So I really do see an alignment with this conversation and with several conversations that we've been having at the city, and we're happy to support through this empowerment process.
Thank you, Rasmeen. I have no further questions, and the referral motion is on the screen.
Thank you, Councillor Santos. Guess we will deal with the motion before seeing the delegation. Sorry.
We can do it all at once.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
So there's a motion that you see on the screen moved by Councillor Santos that the delegation from Angelina Carrera, Brampton resident, to the Committee of Council for this meeting regarding proposal to mitigate displaced garbage be referred to staff with Community Safety and Wellbeing Office for consideration. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing that carries. Thank you, Angelina.
Thank you.
You can please take your seat. I see that we do have other delegations on board, but if council would indulge me, there's a delegation that is item 6.4 on the similar on I would say the same topic, if we could actually bring that one up forward to deal with that at this time, since the discussion is ongoing. So I would request item 6.4, a delegation from Bill Godfrey, founder and organizer for People Against Littering, regarding item 11.3.2, development of a citywide litter cleanup program. We have the related discussion item 11.3.2 from Councilor Vicente also on today's agenda, which we can deal with after this delegation. I welcome Bill, and you have 5 minutes for this delegation.
All
and
right.
If you would require extra time, please do let us know.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Actually, I'm here mainly to support Paul Vicente's motion. For those of you that don't know me, most of you do, I'm Bill Godfrey, the founder of People Against Littering, or PAL for short. PAL is a nonprofit organization of volunteers, unselfish, unpaid, caring, and fun to be with. They are incredible people. I'm honored to have them with me today. We are here, as I said, to support Paul Vicente's motion to inspire and leverage the power of people to make Brampton's first litter-free city. Imagine that, people. We look forward to the motion passing and working with the city and other community organizations to make PAL's dream of a litter-free Brampton come true. PALs are unrivaled in our passion and dedication of making Brampton clean, litter-free city. Since June 2020, PALs have had over 150 community cleanups, cleaned up more than 20 tons of trash. We have pictures. Angelina showed some of them. As far as I know, those results are unprecedented anywhere in the world. Councillor Santos calls what PALs do deep cleaning. We clean up everything. We take special pride in cleaning up the litter and trash that hasn't been touched for years, even decades. We clean up the usual new litter, but we also go back into the hard-to-get areas in thick brush that everyone else avoids. We get the old stuff. We cut our way through thorn bushes. We get on our knees digging up litter, disintegrating plastic bags and pieces of glass that are buried in layers of the dirt. Remember the greenhouses in Brampton? How many years ago? We cleaned up the glass from that. We were on our knees picking up thousands of tiny pieces of glass at Ken Willens Drive Park. We've used crowbars and shovels to dig and pry out rusted shopping carts, bikes, barrels, tents, clothing, appliances, everything imaginable that have been buried in Etobicoke Creek for years. There are areas in the creek that have never, ever, ever been cleaned up before PALs come along. I tell the gentlemen that are helping that we're making history there. I have a plastic Yellow Pages cover that I pulled out of the mud in Etobicoke Creek, 1988 date on it. I have a plastic drink container, expiry date 2010, a 1965 car license plate. We pulled that out of a ravine amongst dozens of ancient medicine bottles. They were dumped there many years ago. But cleanups by PALs and other groups year after year in the same places again and again are not the long-term solution. The solution is for Brampton to become a city united against litter. That's why PALs support Councillor Vicente's motion. It will help our mission, PAL mission, to succeed. The citizens of Brampton have to show our pride in our city. We have to step up. We have to control. We have to take the lead. We all have to do our little bit. So PAL's mission is to encourage individuals, friends, families, neighbors, and strangers to work together and take responsibility for keeping our city and making it beautiful. Our goal is to unite, inspire and embolden our citizens, empower our communities to rise up in solidarity, eradicate litter from their neighborhoods, work with the city, community, and business leaders and politicians at all levels to solve the problems which Angelina's talking about. Let's get together, let's discuss them. But citizens have to lead the way. We have to let them take pride and ownership of the city. We will become the only city in the world that became litter-free because the citizens took the initiative and led the way. The only solution around the whole world. We've been relying too much on other people to do it for us. We have to take control. And we've got a system where all we have to do is pick up 5 pieces of litter a week. 5 pieces of litter a week. 5% of the population, we clean Brampton in 5 months. Our citizens and our city of Brampton will become a shining beacon of hope and be the inspiration for fun, exciting anti-littering movements in cities across Canada and around the globe. Brampton's reputation will skyrocket. The positive publicity when we make Brampton litter-free will be worth millions of dollars to Brampton. So yes, we support the motion full-heartedly and the opportunity to work with the city and join with other community organizations to make history, inspire the world, make Brampton a truly litter-free city. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. I don't know anybody that is as passionate as you are about this topic. From the first conversation I've had with you to every single time I speak with you, you're always this passionate. I have Councillor Vicente on the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Bill Godfrey, and thank you, pals, for coming here today. I am a big believer in the gospel of Bill Godfrey, and that is finding a way to get people together to pick up the litter that, for complicated reasons, so many different reasons, ends up in our public spaces. And every member of council that is here, of course, supports PALS, and we support many organizations here in the city of Brampton that take the time to help keep Brampton clean. And so I'll ask if the clerks can bring up the motion as it was published in the agenda, but there's also going to be a revision this morning. Bill, thank you so much. Thank you, Angelina, for touching on this in your delegation as well. What is the role of the city in helping the community to make a litter-free city possible? That is what the motion is attempting to get staff to start and wrap their heads around, because we know that organizations alone can't do it all. They need support to organize and to coordinate. I know that earlier this year I was at the Smart Cities Conference in Taipei, and you know, in that conference we saw many different examples where technology is leveraged to help organize and identify so many different aspects of what a city requires in terms of maintenance. And so in the future, and you know, Bill, you've talked about this before, how important would it be for, you know, in terms of technology software, in terms of organizing people or identifying all of the spaces that need to be looked after? How, like you've talked about this at length before, talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, this would all be vital, and that's why I am really supporting your motion, because this gives me a chance to work with people that have the technology. You don't do a presentation like this, you do a presentation like that. But I don't have the technology, I don't have the skills, I don't have the resources, and by what you're proposing, I'll have access to that. So we'll use technology, use the tools that I don't possess, access the skills and the resources that we need to do this, because this is going to be a massive initiative. But we can make it work. We can make it work. That's why I am so passionate about it. It actually is ludicrously simple when you think about it. If I could pay everybody $1 for every piece of litter they picked up, practically litter-free in 3 hours, you know? So we have to find another way to excite people. So what I want to do is establish records. I want to record the city, the only city ever cleaned up by the citizens. I want to have us, like you know, if you check my People Against Littering, I have the mission. I want everybody to commit, to make a pledge. I want to have Brampton, the only city in the world that has 10,000, 20,000 people that have actually signed up to clean up their own city, to pick up 5 pieces of litter. And I believe we can get 5% of the population. I say 5% because you people think I'm crazy, but I believe we can get 40,000 people who are willing to spend 30 seconds out of a week to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Did my job, 40,000 people. Imagine. You don't stop at 5. We clean up our city, people. We do it ourselves. Then we work with the city. We work with the city people. We solve the problem, because like an overflowing tub, sopping up the water doesn't solve the problem. You have to stop the tap. So we clean it up. The citizens lead the way, working with the city. Then we solve the problems that Angelina talked about. We work on that one at one until finally we become that litter-free city that everybody in Canada will admire and want to duplicate. Mississauga will want to do the same thing. Kelowna will want to do the same. We have a chance to inspire the world. And that's what I try to tell people. This is a chance to make history. I'm 76 years old. I've never had a chance to make history before. We all have a chance to do it. We have a chance to do it, people. We could do it. Just think about it, just a tiny commitment. You know, we can all do it. And I better stop because I'll go on forever.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bill. And, you know, like, just speak about small examples and touching on what Angelina spoke about before. I used to live on Vaughan Street, and close to where my house was, there was a catwalk that connected Vaughan to the local school. And that small little catwalk was always filled with all manner of litter, sand from snow clearing operations, etc. And it would just drive me crazy. And so in a sense, I kind of, as one person, I kind of adopted that little catwalk, and I would clean it every spring. Imagine if we could identify every piece of the city that needs that type of care, and there was someone who could agree or would take part to make sure that that was looked after, let's say, at least one time a year. And so, thank you so much, Bill.
Just want to make a point. If we get the citizens involved, you won't have to do it once a year. You won't have the litter. I want to put PAL out of the litter picking business. I don't want there to be the litter. So no, instead of picking up litter, I want us to go celebrate the fact that, guess what? 40,000 people in Brampton care about our city enough to pick it up. We've got Joseph has picked up 250,000 pieces in a year. We've got a lot of lone heroes. They're needed, but they're not the solution. The solution is to have 25,000 people picking up 10 pieces of litter. Now we have a community that's a hero. Everybody becomes heroes. We all want to become heroes in our Brampton. We can do it. Look, Joseph is amazing, you know, and I look at them all, Sandy, Victoria, Wilma, Maureen, Rob, Brett, Hank, unbelievable. We cannot keep on relying on a small group of people. We cannot. It's got to be a city united against litter, and that's why I like your motion, because that's what it's proposing.
Thank you. And, you know, every member of council is behind you and behind this idea, as is staff. And so just speaking to the motion now, if I may, members. I'll be, first of all, moving to receive the delegation, Mr. Chair. And we did some revisions to the motion because we wanted to make sure that we included the fact that other groups also participate and do cleanups across the city. And it's going to require coordinated effort. But it's also going to require that staff take the time to speak with community groups and find out what they're doing and figure out what it is that we can do to help them and coordinate and achieve this goal of a litter-free city. So under the revised motion, we're giving precise direction to staff, and it says that therefore be it resolved that staff work with PALs and other stakeholders such as, but not limited to, the BIA, TRCA, Credit Valley Conservation, and small businesses to review their processes and coordination efforts to identify gaps in maintaining a clean city, and then report back to council in Q4 with input from these groups on how to inspire and leverage the power of these groups and their volunteers in making Brampton Canada's first litter-free city. And Bill, I hope that we can all work together and find a way to make that dream a reality.
Let's do it. It's only impossible until it's not. Right?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you, Councillor Vicente. I did have Councillor Santos on the board. Did you have a question for the delegation, or you want to speak to the motion?
Mr. Chair, I may, but I am speaking to the motion. I do actually have a couple of friendly amendments, if it may, to make it a little bit more specific. Because based on the conversations, the delegation from the residents as well, People Against Littering, as well as the residents themselves, the neighborhood association work that's being done, issues at transit stops with overflowing garbage, the region of Peel who collects garbage on the corridors, or the TRCA, the CVCA. This, to become a litter-free city, requires so many different types of solutions, but also conversations. So while picking up 5 pieces of litter for every single individual in the city of Brampton is absolutely a part of that puzzle piece, a big part, and a big part to play, there's also the issue related to, at the region of Peel, we passed a motion on full producer responsibility with respect to the recycling and waste. And that's a motion that was just recently passed, where businesses, corporations, the Amazons, who's a big partner of ours on economic development, need to be responsible for their litter so that we don't have to pick it up after. or it's not overflowing in the garbage bin. So the solution is very all-encompassing. And I find that when you bring people around the same table, as many people around the same table around a common vision, which is a litter-free city, you can gain more out of that one conversation with folks around the table than separate conversations with different organizations, right? And I would love to be part and meet all the different organizations. There's Peel Community Council, who we know, the young people who are running a campaign to address climate change. And you've also got the Brampton Environmental Alliance, who has an entire umbrella organization of all the other organizations who would be great to be around the table to bounce ideas off of. And you have Angelina, who just presented today with some other solutions and ideas, and I'd love to get representatives around the table from Amazon or from some of the other, Tim Hortons is just another example, who's a sponsor of this city, but when we go pick up litter in the parks, I see hundreds of Tim Horton cups everywhere, right? They need to be part of the solution. So my suggestion and amendment to this motion would be a little bit more specific, because instead of talking to the organizations in silos, I think we need to bring as many of them as possible around the table. And if there are going to be a lot of them, then maybe we have a litter-free summit where we have all these organizations together and we agree. Maybe we have we commit to a litter-free Brampton and have all the people attending the summit sign the pledge, right, at that summit. But when you have meetings separately and you have staff chasing all the organizations separately, you miss that opportunity. And so I'm gonna make a friendly amendment, if it were, therefore be it resolved that staff convene a meeting that brings PAL, and other community groups and stakeholders, such as but not limited to, and that is the change. That brings PAL and other community groups and stakeholders, such as Brampton Environmental Alliance, Peel Community Climate Council, or Community Climate Council, Places of Worship, Councillor Pleshy, but you're on the board, I don't want to steal the thunder. Places of Worship is a good one, a really, really good one. Yeah, and others such as, but not, okay, and then all that, and then everything else is fine, but I think we had a summit on international students, and the solution, we came up with a charter that people signed, that is a tangible thing that people are sharing their vision on one page. And so I think having a meeting of everybody and a summit that we can attend, that community members can attend to hear the vision versus having separate conversations will be far more effective. So such as, can we just include, because I want Brampton Environmental Alliance and the Peel Community Climate Council? And Places of Worship, yeah, you've got Places of Worship. Brampton Environmental Alliance, sorry. And, oh yeah, sports organizations are super important because, you know, at Terremoto Park, we're all into cricket, or at the baseball diamonds where we were cleaning up at Dugan Park, under the dugouts or the benches was all the garbage underneath. And they're literally just throwing it underneath the benches. Ram sports organizations, perfect. So that's the, I hope that Councillor Vicente will take that as a friendly. And then that's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Santos. Councillor Palacio, you're up next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I love the idea of the getting together for the summit. Yeah, we could have that summit in Heart Lake where PAL originated from.
Yeah.
What I had mentioned before about when we were going through budget, and Councillor Breyer and myself moved a similar motion and actually allocated some funding, and then we've had meetings with Ed. If maybe Ed can come down, if we can kind of talk about, maybe if you can just highlight what has been done thus far. And I think Jason Tamming was involved with some of the communication and website stuff that we wanted to support PAL with as well. So,
yeah.
Ed?
Thank you, Councillor Palacio. Through the chair, yes, so we've allocated an extra $15,000 this year for marketing, and excuse me, and that's with transit buses, shelters advertising, increased ethnic media advertising, radio and print, and also supporting PAL as I'm probably their biggest fan, stickers and such that could be used on their bags, correct, and some A-frames. And if I could, taking that into consideration, sorry, my voice is going on me, but in comparison to last year's stats as a total in volunteers, we had approximately 14,000 participants. Already this year, we're up to 22,000. Wow. So we're doing a little part. You know, they're rock stars. We're trying to, you know, they're paving the way. But yes, we have been meeting with, and recreation, another part with our self-cleanups. You can go on our Brampton website. And with that, we've, at 12 rec centers, we actually bring our cleanup kits there. So cleanup volunteers can go there to make it a little easier for groups instead of coming to this one location. So we have started to implement some of these things, but the support is, thank you very much for the support.
Ed, you know what I kind of find is, you know, I talked to, lives on Kirkpatrick, part of the Heart Lake Boy Scouts. They go out and clean up Conestoga and Sandalwood, the baseball diamond on the southwest corner. They do that once a year, and so that's why I was saying about sports organizations as well. A lot of the sports teams organize cleanups, but I don't think they tell us or anything. They just go out in an area that they've identified. They don't even ask us for the garbage bags that we can supply, the gloves that we can supply. So I think that's a big part of reaching out to try to organize a little bit more. When I was talking to the Boy Scouts, Heart Lake Boy Scouts, I had mentioned that to them. Call us so that we can come out and they even take it to the Heart Lake Recycling Center. Like, they really are removed from us. They handle everything themselves. But if we were to have that dialogue and communication with them, I think you know, the organization of all of this is a big part of it. And that's why I like the idea of the summit and adding as many, you know, stakeholders. Everything's captured in stakeholders, but I think identifying, especially places of worship do it, schools do it, sports organizations, Boy Scouts do it. So having that bigger dialogue, I think, is good.
I agree. And currently, our Brampton website, our Clean City, if you go on there, you can register. And part of that marketing campaign was that, to try to encourage people there.
Yeah.
But the summit would be amazing. But in the interim, while we work through that, I encourage anyone to go on our Brampton website, because we do supply bags, and pickers, and garbage can. And then we have staff come back around to clean up whatever's been left in that park. Our district staff will go back to support that as well.
And then we talked about having a ticker on the website about how many pieces have been picked up. How are we with that?
So we've briefly having some conversations with Mr. Tamming's group, which is great, through the media piece. We are working through that, as well as in talking to Michelle through 311, Michelle Solsky. That QR code, fabulous idea. She has already started them conversations to look at that as well. So we're trying to blend that into the website as a ticker, and yes, the conversations we had, if it's trees planted to bags picked up to litter, we're trying to figure out how that would look. And I think that would be a great initiative to be included in this. Yeah.
And Ed, I'm going to highlight it because Bill said it. Buckthorn. Invasive species. Our nemesis everywhere, especially in the rural area.
Yes.
Creeping in. Is there a strategy in terms of, you know, working with TRCA, CVC, because this buckthorn not only, you know, inhibits our ability to get into where, you know, the garbage is, or it actually takes the garbage and starts the shredding process. Is there a strategy that we're working on?
Yes, so currently with the TRCA and the CVC as well, we have our integrated pest management specialist through under horticulture, and we do some buckthorn removal. That being said, that strategy, support can be increased. As you know, the buckthorn, and for some that do not, tends to creep on the outside of all our woodlots and water spaces. And so wherever there's an open space, you cut it. We do have a mechanical removal piece that we do, which is, because it's manual sort of mechanical, it's sort of, it's a little more time consuming. Because with the pesticide ban, that sort of reduces that as well. So we're currently still doing that, and we should, and we should be able to increase that as well. Yes.
Okay, good.
And so meeting with the litter piece with the TRCA is how do we expand upon that program as well.
Okay.
But we currently do that.
Okay, good. Thanks, Ed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Councilor Pelesi. And Mayor Brown, you are up next.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to Councilor Basante for bringing more attention to this. I think it's a great idea to look at ways to encourage more collaboration. I should just say, first of all, Bill, thank you for being an inspiration in our city. No one's more passionate about ensuring a litter-free Brampton than you are, and it's contagious. Everyone that meets you on your efforts wants to help out, and so thank you for being such a contagious force of good in our city. As the discussions happened today at council, and this tends to happen, is it creates ideas of how we can enhance it. And so, I was just thinking, I was on a tour of Coca-Cola bottling recently, and they were talking about, part of their work where they pick a local park to clean up. And I was at G&W Electric with Councillor Brar this week, and they showed us a photo of a cleanup initiative they did. And I think a lot of this is happening sort of in silos, so I love the idea that we could create a platform to get that more coordinated, because obviously organizations like PAL have a better understanding of best practices, or we could be helpful for some of these corporate citizens that want to be good citizens in our community, that want to be businesses that take ownership. The other aspect I was thinking of in this that we should, incorporate into this is we've done park namings to reflect our mosaic. And I look at the Almadía community where they wanted to take ownership of cleaning up that park. I look at the Shabazz Body Park where the Pakistani Christian community wanted to take ownership of cleaning up that park. And maybe we could really put that challenge out to groups that we've worked with because they're proud of their ancestry and their heritage they want to celebrate in Brampton, almost a challenge, and say, help us make sure that your park, named after this important part of our mosaic, is the cleanest in the city. And so maybe, trying to create that coordination, because if you look at, over the last 30 years, different groups that have had the aspect of mosaic recognized, if we sort of compile that list, that would be a fun challenge. Where, just recently, we're in the process with Councillor Keenan and Medeiros of recognizing the Sagamartha Park with the Nepalese community. And they asked that. They came to the meetings saying, what could we do to clean up this park? Give us a park that's more downtrodden that we can take, that we can support as a community. And so I just love where this can go. And so I'm really glad this was on the agenda today. And I think there's many ways that we could give this even more emphasis. So thank you, Bill, once again for driving the conversation on something that is critical for our city.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Councilor Vicente, you have the floor again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to members of council who have helped in making this motion better. And I just want to make one more addition, Charlotte, if we can. We would be remiss if we didn't mention MTO, Ministry of Transportation, who help and organize and have carriage, if you will, of the off-ramps and on-ramps to the highways, which are often filled with litter. How can we engage them and find ways to make sure that those are kept clean as well? So if we could add that in. Thank you. And not to be too picky, Charlotte, where in the first sentence where we have PAL, if we can just add the apostrophe S, and it'll be perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. Seeing no more speakers on this, We have the motion one to receive the delegation. I'll move that motion first. That motion is moved by Councillor Vicente to receive the delegation. So all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. And you have the motion in front of you from Councillor Vicente. Moved by Councillor Vicente. So all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, and that motion carries as well. Councillor Vicente, were you doing a photo with House? No.
Let's do a photo with that.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. If I can please have everybody back in their seats. Moving on to the next item, item 6.2, a delegation from Tanya Burkhardt and Aidan Janey from Peel Acorn regarding multi-residential unit landlord licensing and improved tenant rates. Welcome, Tanya and Aidan. You have up to 5 minutes.
Good morning, Council. My name is Aidan Janey, and I'm joined by Tanya Burkhardt. We're both members of Peel Acorn, a community union of low and moderate income people that has 24 chapters and over 160,000 members across the country, including in the Peel region. Thank you for having us today. To set the context of why we're here, we're seeing skyrocketing rent prices across the country, but it's mainly low and moderate income people that are bearing the brunt of the housing crisis. Among Canada's mid-sized cities, Brampton has topped the charts with annual rent growth of condos and purpose-built rentals, recording a 31.2% increase. A lack of vacancy control provides a massive financial incentive for the landlords to evict long-term tenants. There are several other loopholes in the provincial housing legislation such as buyouts, that is making the housing crisis worse. The supply of housing is a problem, but we need new developments to be real affordable housing, and we need to also protect existing affordable housing. Peel ACORN members are facing a whole host of issues, but we'd like to highlight 3 top housing issues that we strongly believe the cities can play a pivotal role in solving and protecting tenants and affordable housing. The first is that too many landlords in the city are getting away with no accountability. Tenants are struggling with pests, mold, flooding, and just a general lack of repair and maintenance. The onus is completely on the tenants to file a complaint, which in many cases are not followed up upon. This proves the need for a landlord registration program. Second and third are renovictions and demevictions, both of tactics that landlords use to displace tenants, especially in the case of renovations where the tenant's right to return is never enforced. In my case, my landlord, Lincoln Investments, formerly Polis Investments, gave buyouts to tenants. Many felt overwhelmed by the renovations, took the buyouts and left. Others like us who stayed firm had to live with frequent water shutoffs, unmaintained laundry rooms, and much more. Also, the same owner now wants to demovict tenants from 507 Balmoral Drive, which will render so many tenants homeless, many of whom are seniors and people with disabilities. I will now pass on to Tanya Burkhart to go through Peel ACORN's recommendations.
Good morning, everyone. We all need a roof over our head, and we all need healthy and safe homes. And I know Brampton has already put forward a motion for landlord licensing. We're happy to know that the City of Brampton has passed this. We need this bylaw to include multi-residential apartment buildings, which only applies to single resident units as of now. It needs to be included in all wards across the city. As new developments and buildings are built, those buildings need to be included. We also want the city to ensure that in-suite inspections occur. It's easy for a city, someone to complain in the city to come in and look at the outside of the property, but tenants don't live on the outside of the property. We live on the inside. And it's important that the insides of units are inspected. The city could give a building or a landlord a passing score, but the insides of units are in deplorable conditions. I've been dealing with a range of safety issues, and my landlord is Boardwalk. Boardwalk also is the owner of 45 Railroad, which has luxury rentals in about a 5-minute walk from here. The bylaw needs to have enough strength so that it can be properly enforced. And the City of Brampton could also, to stop renovictions and demevictions, could introduce anti-renoviction bylaws similar to New Westminster. The city can put in place new rules and business regulations and licensing bylaws regarding the evictions of tenants for renovations. The purpose is to discourage landlords from renovicting tenants and displacing them. Since passing the bylaw in New Westminster, there have been 0 renovictions. To stop demevictions, which means demolition, eviction for demolition, the city must replicate rental replacement bylaws that exist in Mississauga and Toronto that ensures tenants have the right to return to the same size and type of unit, and the unit will remain under rent control. It also provides moving costs and additional compensation not covered by provincial law. We are losing affordable housing far faster than new affordable housing and purpose-built rental can be built. We would also like to advocate for a tenant defense fund like Hamilton and Toronto that assists low-income tenants to defend their applications at LTB against above-guideline rent increases, renovictions, and demevictions. All of these bylaws are possible. I think that's it. So thank you for having ACORN speak today.
Thank you so much, Tanya and Aiden. I do have Councillor Keenan with a question on the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So thank you for your delegation. I know we've obviously spoken and had some meetings, and a few items. Obviously, we have a housing crisis, and you know, growing up in Peel nonprofit housing, I understand the struggles and trials and tribulations of being in those settings. and understanding that we need to do what we can to make sure that we're protecting all residents. When you talked about the licensing, and having it being for multi-tenant units, and I think we will look at that. And I just want to address when you're saying it has to be all the way across the city. I think the reason that we chose to pilot it in certain areas currently is to make sure we get it right. And then the plan is, once we get it right, to roll it across, and we want to keep it kind of in the areas that are most affected currently, get that program right, and then it would be the right thing, obviously, to put it all the way across the city, which I think is our intention over time. And I feel like you brought up a few things that I didn't know about, which is the fund that other municipalities have. Can you talk more about what that fund is and what it is used for?
A tenant defense fund is created with municipal funding, and it allows tenants who've received N13s or other N12s where the landlord says he's moving in. It allows them to go before LTB and basically receive any kind of legal support, because it's very difficult for tenants in a digital hearing to receive that support, because hearings are only online. And so that creates problems with digital access, because not a lot of tenants, particularly older seniors, there's a great digital divide. And it just allows tenants fair access to basically receiving the justice they need at LTB.
And this already exists in other municipalities?
Yes, it exists, I believe, in Hamilton and Toronto.
Okay, great. So those are my only questions. So thank you again for your delegation.
Thank you, Councillor Keenan and Councillor Santos.
Thank you through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Acorn, for coming in. I'm a member of Acorn, have been since Lennon was born in 2019, so for 2010, sorry. So for 13 years now. I know that, and through you, Mr. Chair, to staff, we recently made comments regarding the revisions to the Homeowners and Tenant Protection Act. And I know that we had advocated for more rent control options and regarding rent evictions and demo evictions. I'm wondering if, for the benefit of our delegates today, if staff can just summarize some of those recommendations we made to the province, only because there are certain things that we just don't have jurisdiction over. Yes. And also another question through you, Mr. Chair, for staff to clarify it through the questions on licensing of landlords that's coming forward. And when we met, I was unclear. But do we, to the staff, do we have jurisdiction over multi-unit apartment buildings that are rentals in terms of our licensing of landlords pilot program?
Through the chair, at this point in time, it's my understanding that we do have jurisdiction over the licensing of the ARUs, or multi-unit residential units on single-family detached, or on all lots rather, not just the ones that are for single-family detached units. Staff will be reporting back in September of this year on an update on the landlord licensing program. To your earlier question regarding a bit of a summary to sort of the city's position on the Bill 97 as it spoke to some of the landlord licensing and act. In a nutshell, basically what Bill 97 did is it gave more rights to tenants to advocate for things that we had heard from the delegation today, everything from air conditioning to rental fees and whatnot. Staff would be happy to have a sort of an offline conversation with Acorn to kind of go in depth on our staff report and perhaps work with Acorn and others going forward on any advocacy efforts.
Sure, that would be great. Thank you very much. No further questions. Thank you, Acorn, for coming today.
Thank you, Councillor Santos, and thank you, Tanya and Aiden, for your delegation. Next is item 6.3. Oh, sorry. My apologies. I have a motion moved by Councillor Keenan to receive the delegation. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Next item is item 6.3, a delegation from Carrie Lee Percival, Chair, and Emma O'Malley, Marketing and Events Chair for Downtown Brampton BIA, regarding support for downtown Brampton BIA businesses. Welcome, Carrie and Emma. You have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having us this morning and delegating. Emma and I are here to talk about some support for the downtown businesses during this construction that's happening. If we can go to the next slide, please. So these are just some quick stats. Since construction has begun, we've seen 19 businesses in our core leave, be it closing up shop or leaving the premises. We've also seen currently, I've been speaking to the Main Street, Main Street South businesses, they have been reporting up to 80%. I have 65 there as an average, but up to 80% loss in revenue from year to year based on their last year's revenue. This does not include food waste or canceled orders, so this is important to know. And this is also not including overstaffing. So the loss of income for these businesses has been quite great over the last 3 weeks. Layoffs have increased. Again, we're just talking about Main Street South. So we're not even considering what Queen Street, which is desolate right now. Queen Street East is what I'm talking about. The 20% of staffing has been reported of loss, with more to come is from what the businesses are saying. Next slide, please. So what we'd like to ask the city is some help with getting the names of the businesses out there to start, and that would be allowing distribution of postcards to city staff and offering specials in certain businesses, if we can have that through our communications department. Allow for advertisement on the big screen in the Garden Square for the businesses that are being greatly impacted by the construction at this point. And then one of the biggest asks that we're asking for is a collaboration between the city and the BIA on events. This will allow for cross-promotion. We're finding that it's very segregated and that it's city-run stuff or BIA, but if we had some sort of bigger kind of collaboration, we would be able to get more people down and more initiatives being done. Next slide. But the biggest ask is going to be the construction mitigation grant that we've been doing a lot of research on. Next slide. So in January of 2023, the City of Toronto announced that they were launching a construction mitigation grant. So this is not something new. We are not reinventing the wheel. We can totally take a look at what they're doing and how they're doing it. The application of the grant is only open to the BIAs and for not-for-profit or organizations that have strong business community involvement. So I'm not saying it's just for the BIAs, but there is some room there that we can have this for other organizations that are not-for-profit. With the grant being provided to the BIAs opposed going directly to the businesses, it does not fall under the Section 106 of the Municipality Act of bonusing. So this would allow us not to go into any kind of legal ramifications. Next slide. So reallocating these funds that are already available. This is important. This is for the other council members. This is not, I'm not asking it to be pulled from any other section of the city. What I'd like to see is that the business improvement grant, a facade improvement grant, which is $300,000 allocated a year to help improve the overall appearance of downtown, is that we take a look at what is currently being offered. Next slide. Currently, for this fiscal year, there are only 2 applications and possibly 3 more based on my conversations with city staff, which if they use their full amount is only going to be about $110,000 being used for those grants. Therefore, there's going to be unused funds, about roughly $190,000, that could be put to use in helping businesses being impacted by the current construction. Next slide. We're thinking of a 3-silo approach for the grant, being marketing, events, and beautification and safety. And this would be, we would have to construct the grant and how it would all work. But again, if we take a look at what the City of Toronto is doing, it's easy that we can take, you know, I don't want to say rip it off, but you can literally take what they're doing and just copy paste. Next slide. So moving forward, our ask is that communication to city and staff about supporting local businesses be there. Postcards, communications being out there to support downtown while they're here in the working place. Collaboration with the BIA and the city on what's happening downtown to maximize return. Promotion on businesses on the Garden Square. And then looking at what we can keep in the facade and improvement grant, but while there's construction happening, that some of those monies be allocated to a construction mitigation grant, while there's construction, and covering the 3 silos of marketing, events, and beautification. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Councilor Vicente on the board.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Carrie and Emma, for coming here today. Carrie, you've been a tireless advocate for the downtown businesses. As the chair of the BIA, you have been absolutely effective and attentive, listening to their needs and being their advocate here at Council. I know that both Councilor Keenan and I, it's really been a pleasure to work with you and your board, and we're honored to serve with you. As I understand it, this is an item that we need to refer to staff. And so I will be moving that this request be referred to staff for a report back to council. Just a question through you, Chair, to staff. This, we would like to see something happen, I think, sooner rather than later. How quickly might we be able to have a report come forward to us?
Through the chair to Councilor Vicente, we can have something back before the end of the month. I'm figuring out the earliest within 2 weeks.
2 weeks. So, Carrie, is that?
No, I know that we are going to be breaking for recess, not recess here, but during the summer, and I'd like to see something done before at the next council, if possible.
So, in terms of break, you're referring to council's schedule?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
CO, is there something, can we?
Perhaps, if I can, through the chair, on this matter, I know that our comms folks have worked with BIA in March. I know there's a couple of meetings, and I know that we want to understand better what marketing material we want to provide and support BIA, because I understand we provide grants as well to support their marketing areas. And perhaps we can immediately meet within the next few days on what the urgent need is to support the BIA in the downtown, and then further to the request of grant, it would be a good opportunity for staff to be able to take that back to understand and work with our downtown folks through Steve Ganish's group to be able to report back to council or committee in a very short time.
And just in terms of Councilor Santos, you mentioned that perhaps there are pieces of this request that we could address more quickly and have that expedited. Mr. Cieo?
Through the chair, that is correct. I noticed there's 2 pieces. There's the immediate need to move some money over, and there's also a long-term proposal in future moving ahead. So if we take what Alex just mentioned, we can meet and separate out the urgent needs and perhaps get something back to council in 2 parts.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Vicente. Councilor Santos.
Thank you for you, Mr. Chair, delegating today. Great to see you, and I see Deborah Kenny, I see Mark Sick, I see Rick Evans in the room. Thanks for coming today. And I do support the idea of the construction mitigation in the downtown, and thank you for finding an opportunity for us without increasing the budget, but to reallocate a possible budget source that is being underutilized. And quite frankly, during the time of construction, a facade improvement grant is not going to help based on the current framework that a facade improvement grant exists. So it would be, I think this is a good step forward and try to understand how that particular allocation of money that's already there for the BIA, how it could be better served for the businesses in the area during this time of construction. There was one piece that I found that might have been missing in the delegation, which I know the BIA has been talking about, and Emma, you in particular, have been talking about for a long time, and that's all the vacant buildings that are owned by the city, or vacant spaces owned by the city of Brampton. And I know that staff are
looking at particular spaces on Main Street North. But I know that there are other spaces as well that are sitting vacant. And through you, Mr. Chair, I guess, to the BIA, what impact that does have on you and the neighboring businesses when there are so many other vacant spaces next door in the downtown? Just to question what the impact is.
What we should do?
Know the impact of the
The impact of vacant businesses. So if we have no businesses, there's no energy to fuel off of. I'm on Main Street North, so I look at, I think, 12 empty spaces at the moment for the past over 2 years. It's very disappointing. It's very hard to fuel my own business and fuel my community when community members, business owners, board members are asking me every day what's happening with these businesses, and I don't have anything good to report. So
Yeah.
I know there's 10 months or so of something
Yeah.
that they have to check before businesses can go in, and I just
Yeah.
wondering if there's an update
Yeah.
on even that.
And thank you for that. And so I know that there's some complications, and we're dealing with some issues in risk mitigation to take a look at some of those specific businesses. But I'm wondering, so I've had a conversation with folks in community services, and Brampton Arts Organization, located at 8 Nelson Street right now, has also noticed vacant, offices, spaces within that building. And so part of construction mitigation is how do we get more people into the downtown? We're not going to get more people in the downtown if everything is vacant. And so through the chair to staff, are we making any revenue on these buildings, or is it just a sunk cost to just keep them open and vacant? I know the answer to that question, but I thought I'd ask.
Through the chair, I understand those buildings are currently vacant, as mentioned, so there would be no revenues coming in. It would
Yeah.
just be a maintenance cost.
So in the city of Toronto, we have discovered that they have something called the community space tenancy. And what that is they've taken vacant city-owned spaces, buildings, offices, whatever, and at a below-market rent, given construction or issues in the particular neighborhood, they've offered it to community organizations to actually use. And so there's a community benefit piece associated with it because they're essentially nonprofit organizations. There's a community benefit piece, therefore justifying more of a below-market rent being offered. And in the city of Brampton, this council in particular, I know that Chair Tour, you've been pointing this out as well. We are lacking creative spaces, particularly for artists. And at Brampton Arts Organization, next door to their spaces, they're looking for opportunity to offer those creative spaces for artists themselves. So I'm wondering, as part of the referral back to staff, and I'm not saying immediately, this is not part of your 2-week window, okay? But I would like us to also consider an update of what we are doing with those vacant spaces in the downtown core to include opportunity for an artist space tenancy program, to have some of those spaces available as a community benefit, similar to the Brampton Bike Hub right now, different spokes, kind of a similar model, but utilizing that space. And I'm not saying making it free, but I'm saying that because there's a community benefit, we need to consider that and actually make some revenue versus just leaving them vacant. And some of those businesses that are being analyzed right now for various issues, perhaps there's an opportunity to look at those spaces as well, because it has an impact on the downtown when everything is closed. So I'm going to add that as another amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Santos. Councilor Palesi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in speaking to the referral, speaking in support of the referral, just with respect to construction across the city, it's it hurts businesses, and we know that from, the city standpoint. The region certainly knows that as well. But it's no different right across the city. So if we're doing something like this, then, which I'm in support of, but it's no different than what I've heard from, business owners on Bovaird right now, with the massive amount of construction that's being undertaken by the region that's impacting those businesses as well. So if we're going to do this, then I would like to amend the referral to be citywide. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Palashi. And Mayor Brown?
Yeah, so I find this to be a very creative solution. I think the first part of this is pretty straightforward. In terms of what the City of Toronto is doing, I'd love to hear more about that. I think that's the staff report that Councilor Vicente was requesting in terms of what levels. I remember having Josh Cole visit my office when he finishes as city councilor. He came to the office here, and I asked him, what did you learn as being a city councilor? And he said that construction is harder than you think. And of course, he was the councilor that had Eglinton Crosstown that since got worse and worse and worse, and hopefully we don't have any nightmares like that. But that stuck with me. He said when you're having these construction projects, they're harder on businesses than you even anticipate. And so I do think we need to think creatively about how we keep businesses afloat. And so I welcome the fact that the BIA is thinking about ideas. And hopefully we can find ones that make sense. I also appreciate the point that Councillor Palashi made that when we set a precedent, if there's going to be a construction project in Mount Pleasant or a construction project in Bramalea down the road, they're going to come and say, we want the same deal that happened in the downtown. Now, I recognize the downtown's the heart of a community, and there's an official role for a BIA, but the reality is once you set a precedent, that's, if there's a major construction project elsewhere, they're going to come here with the same with the same expectations. But I want to know how we can help. I am worried that with the construction anticipated over the years to come, that it's going to be very hard on businesses. And so I really look forward to the staff report to find out ways in which we can collaborate with you to keep you afloat during this difficult period to help. And we've got some amazing restaurants in the downtown. We've got some amazing shops in the downtown. And I think we want to find ways to help share your story. It's one of the reasons I've been doing these videos across the city, to let people know about businesses that may be hidden treasures. And not everyone knows some of the great services that's available. We do, because we're here at City Hall every day. But I think we need to look at ways in which we can use the tools that we have to help mitigate the next few years, which are going to be very challenging. So I certainly support a staff report, and would love to hear our staff's perspectives on how else we can amplify your request.
If I may, if that's okay?
Yeah.
Is it okay or not?
I'll ask you a question. Yeah, do you have a comment on that?
Okay, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Is that how I do it? Okay. So thank you, Mayor Brown, to Councillor Palashi's point, when we were looking at creative or innovative ways that we can somehow come up with funds, we made sure it wasn't going to come out of wards 2 and 6. It wasn't coming out of 9 and 10. This fund is specifically for downtown, okay? And that's why we looked at that fund particularly, okay? I get setting a precedent. Awesome, that's great, I think you should. But there should be some guidelines. The staff report from Toronto is specific for dealing with the construction that's with the LRT Eglinton line. And it's specific that it goes to 11 BIAs, not 88 of them, which they have. Okay, so it's very specific on the area and what qualifies for it. And that's very important to recognize, is that we are not asking for money to come out of anybody else's pocket. It's there. And it's not being used. And these people, they don't just have their business here. They live in 9 and 10. They live in 2 and 6. My brother lives in your ward. We run our business here. So it affects all of Brampton. That's it.
Thank you, Carrie. Councillor Keenan, you're up next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Don't run away on me yet. Love the passion that you're bringing. As an entrepreneur and a business owner, and I get the struggles and food and beverage. I understand it, and I understand what the downtown core is going through with the construction. And we as a council know that we're trying to revamp the downtown in whatever we can through getting the Riverwalk project going. But everything takes time, right? We're running a marathon here. And when I look at this and I see, we talked about the vacancies, and I see that we're looking at that for what we could be putting in there to help drive in business. More businesses create more business.
Absolutely.
And I've been talking about this for years, the downtown core, that we need staple businesses in there to drive it in. But my question, is more to staff is, are these vacancies vacant because no one's interested, or because we're turning them down, or because our rent is too high? Or for me, people are not just taking these buildings and leaving because of the construction. This has been an issue for some time. Some of the businesses that are owned, or some of the buildings that are owned by the city have been vacant for some time. While other areas in the downtown, people have come and gone. So why are they choosing those buildings over ours is my question. And I don't know if that is something that can be added to this to come back to see if there has been interest in our buildings and what the reasons may be that we're not doing well in recruitment of businesses into our spaces in particular. I think it is a great idea brought forward by my colleague in saying that we should look at other ways to fill them because it will help drive in business. But I want to know why we're missing the market, and I think we have great potential. I just really need to understand why that's happening, and hopefully we can, if that's some program we can run where we get more competitive on our rent down there in the time being, or something that we're capable of doing, then we need to look at that as well. And I don't know how we add that in here, or if we can add that in here. Say it again. I wanted to report back on how much interest have we had, and why that's not happening, and where we are for rent based on other businesses in the area. And thank you again for your delegation and continuing to try to make our downtown the best that it can be. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Keenan. Would that be added on to this?
I believe it should be, yeah.
Okay, I see that. I see that happening. Mayor Brown, you're up next. Councillor Vicente.
Listening, thank you, Mr. Chair, and listening to the delegation, I think that we do need to make sure that we keep the peace in there, in the downtown. So I'd like to keep that, and with respect to looking at vacant spaces and also in looking at vacant properties, that's fine, because that's a different piece that could come back at a different point from staff. But we want to ensure that since these funds are for the benefit of downtown businesses, and we have the BIA here requesting that these funds in this situation at this time, given the circumstances, be reallocated to the BIA for granting purposes, that we maintain in this motion in the downtown. Thank you.
Mayor Brown.
Yeah, and so I think Councillor Keenan touched on something important, and this is sort of broadening the conversation. But you're right. I struggle to understand why we've allowed so many vacant buildings in the downtown for so long. There's someone I knew who I'm not going to name, who wanted to bring a restaurant to the downtown. Looked at what the city wanted for market rents, and it was not consistent with what market rents where elsewhere in the city. And there's a consequence to that, because if you have a business in the downtown that draws people in, they're going to visit another business. For example, if they go to have Vera Schnitzel, which is the best in Ontario, they're going to walk by a few other restaurants, say, oh, you know, I'm going to get that macaroon as well. When they go to get those chocolate bunnies that you were selling, Emma, at Easter, they're going to stop by some other stops. And so by having vacant buildings, you limit the foot traffic in the downtown. We want, we have a responsibility to be part of your success too. And so we're I don't know how we do these formulas on market rent, but they're broken. And we have to, I think we need to think outside like how do you market an empty building right now, come to a construction scene and this is market rent. I think there needs to be a new, look at this, and maybe that can be in the motion. Just last week, I had someone call me from Councillor Singh in Tor's ward that you would know, who asked about a vacant building, and they said, that they wanted to bring a business there, and so I'm sure there's a ton of interest if there was some incentive to be down there. That we actually recognize the reality of the downtown. This is not, the downtown with no construction. There is a handicap because of that construction, and that should be reflected in the rent. And legally, I look at Samir, because you're probably going to be the one who would go to council and tell us what we're allowed to do in the Municipal Act. But are you not allowed to have some discretion when when you're inhibited for the next 5 years based on construction?
Through the chair to the mayor, I'm not sure I fully understand your question.
So right now, if you have an empty building and you've got a short time period you can use that empty building, we've always been told around this table it can only be rented at market rent citywide. But there's a different reality in the downtown. If we say we can't, we have businesses who say, like, other buildings get rented, our city buildings don't get rented for a reason. Our version of what is market rent isn't accurate. And so can you not have a construction aspect here that say during this period, that there needs to be some discretion on what we view as market rent?
Through the chair, I don't see a reason why market rent, which is an analysis that is internal to the city, that we could not modify to suit the circumstances and the needs of the city.
Okay, well, I'd love to see that in the report. I'm not sure of the language, but I know, Councillor Keane, you've talked about this before. I'm looking at the language you've written in here.
I think that's in point number 3 there. We should be good.
So through you, Mr. Chair, the members of the committee, just for clarity, so the request from the BIA is addressed in clause 1, should report back as soon as possible by the end of June. And then the other 2 items that are related would be coming back in subsequent reports whenever the timing is right, but not necessarily before the end of June, because it may require further investigation.
Okay, no, I think that makes, that works. Yeah. And just to say, I appreciate that answer. I think you guys have all put a lot of effort and research into this. So thank you. And I'm sure, Rick, you've been involved in this too. So thank you for your ongoing. Okay. Well, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That lady has put her heart and soul
Sir,
to save our business.
You're gonna.
Yeah. I know it's emotional because it's what you've invested your sweat, toil, and heart into in the downtown. And so you've registered. I think a lot of us are reacting to what you're saying today. And so I just want to say I welcome the feedback. And obviously, there's a lot of different ideas percolating right now.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mayor Brown, and I'll pass it over again to Councilor Palacio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I appreciate your passion. And you've probably heard me say time and time again that I'm almost done with the downtown, with all the support that we put into it. But I also repeat every time I say that I support the downtown. You probably don't know this, but there's no bigger advocate in camera than me saying, get on with it, do something, let's go. I think my council members will agree that I'm constantly pushing staff and council to make decisions about the downtown. and let's get on with it. I've never said no to anything in the downtown, but I'm not going to treat the downtown differently than anywhere else in the city of Brampton. Now, you may think that you have ownership of the $300,000, but that's taxpayers funded money. It's not your money. It's 2 and 6. It's 7 and 8. It's 3 and 4. It's 9 and 10. It's tax funded money. So when I look at it from a point of view that the money's going into the downtown, do I support the facade program? 100% I support the facade program. The 300,000, 100% I do. But it didn't come from the downtown, it came from the city of Brampton. So whenever we look at opportunities in the city of Brampton, especially that it affects the small majority of businesses in the city as a whole, I also have to support the businesses that are in my area. And so that's why I put the amendment to this to say, if we're gonna look at something like this, we have to look at it from across the city. It doesn't matter to me if the one BIA that we have in the city is directing this, fantastic. But that one BIA, when I hear them speak, I take everything that all the good that they bring forward to the city, and I take that and we put it into 2 and 6 and say, how does that help the businesses of 2 and 6? Because I don't treat them any differently. And that's why I put the amendment to this motion to say we have to look at it from the city as a whole. And it's not to go back to, any construction that's happened in the past, but if staff come to us to say, all future construction across the city, it could have these impacts, we could have this in play. We could have something to say to businesses across the city that if that construction is affecting your business, that the downtown BIA brought it forward, and this is what we're gonna implement across the city. And that's the basis for my amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Palashi. So I have a motion in front of me moved by Councillor Vicente. The motion is in front of you. All in favor?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the amendment that Councillor Palashi moved was to clause 2, and the original wording had vacant city-owned properties in the downtown. So the current motion reflects that amendment being incorporated. So the normal convention of this committee and council has been, if it's a friendly amendment, it's generally accepted by the mover. If it's not friendly and not accepted by the mover, then it will be treated as a formal amending motion, and then would be voted on first. But I haven't heard that whether or not it was accepted or not. We took it as being accepted because there was no indication.
Councillor Palashi? Councillor Palashi?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I didn't hear it was accepted. I actually heard from another councillor that they're supportive of just having this for the downtown, so I didn't think that it was a friendly, but it's not just for clause 2, it's for all of it, because we have vacant city-owned land in other parts of the city that we could also utilize for artists, but with the direct request from the BIA about construction impacts to businesses, that's what the amendments were, to be across the city.
Okay, Councillor Vicente speaking to the amendment?
I'll consider that friendly amendment on 2 and 3, but not for 1, because 1 is very specific request from the BIA.
So then through you, Mr. Chair, my advice would be clause 2 is fine as is. It removes within the downtown as being geographically specific. Clause 3 is, with Councillor Vicente accepting it as friendly, will remove the words within the downtown.
And so does this reflect what Councillor Palashi intends with your amendment?
Yeah, we're just not taking my amendment
For 1?
So that's going to be voted on.
So sorry, through you, I'm not sure what the amendment is for number 1, because all number 1 is referring the request from the BIA to staff, and when the report comes back, it'll address whether it's downtown specific or can or should be expanded citywide. So there's no decision yet made by committee. That's my understanding.
Their direct request is for the downtown businesses, and I'm saying that we should look at it for citywide.
So then through you, Mr. Chair, my advice to committee is this is a matter specific to downtown, and while there's some leeway in clauses 2 and 3, this item is about the downtown. So then to generalize it to the extent that it applies across the whole city is beyond the scope of this particular item and could be a separate item. But I believe when staff report back in June on the report and the specific request from the Downtown Brampton BIA, at that time, council can make the decision whether or not it should be specific to the Downtown Brampton BIA or should be more general.
Okay, Councilor Pelletier again.
Unless I've misunderstood, Mr. Chair, the councilor's intent.
So I completely disagree. The BIA is here today to say, one of the items that they're here to say is there's construction impacts on the businesses in the downtown. I'm saying there's construction impacts on businesses across the city. So if we're gonna ask staff to come back with some ability to provide help to businesses in the downtown, I'm asking for that to be expanded to be across the city.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and that's fine. My advice would be that when staff report back, they can address both the geographic specificity of the downtown, but also look at what are the merits of expanding a similar program, if that's a recommendation of staff, for other construction impacted areas across the city.
So that would be my amendment.
So I think that would be addressed in the report.
But that's for,
If you can make that more specific in the,
I'm asking that to be part of a motion. Not,
And there's other aspects of the request of the BIA that was in their delegation.
I'm just referring to the construction impacts on businesses.
So then presumably through you, Mr. Chair, to members of committee, then Councilor Pelletier, your motion would be for other either construction impacted businesses across the city in terms of the possibility of a construction mitigation grant, which was the item that was specifically referenced.
So do you want that as a separate clause?
Yes.
I'm asking only Peter.
My advice stands, Mr. Chair. This is a matter specific to the downtown. And I think we're starting to stray into areas that are beyond the downtown. I'm not saying that they're worthy of discussion, but the focus of this item was on the downtown.
Downtown businesses.
Downtown Brampton BIA.
So I'll ask for another clause then. To have staff report back on also, and I'm not asking for it to be in June, it can be a separate report, but to be construction across the city.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that.
Welcome.
Councilor Pelletier, if you don't have anything further to add, we'll pass it on to Councilor Vicente. Councilor Vicente?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to members for discussion. Thank you, Carrie and Emma.
Thank you.
Okay, so, what was that? So the motion that is in front of us, moved by Councilor Vicente, is on the screen. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, and that motion carries. Okay. Our next item is item 7.1, Government Relations Matters. Chris from the CAA's office is here once again with a presentation for Government Relations Matter. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Thank you. Good morning through the chair. I'll begin today's presentation with the region appeal updates. Regional Council meets tomorrow, June 8th at 9:30 a.m. We've identified several items to bring to your attention. Next slide, please. First, we have item 9.1, development charge policy, places of worship for information report. This report responds to a regional council resolution asking staff to provide options that would allow for the region to harmonize its approach to the calculation of regional development charges applicable to places of worship with those of its local municipalities. Any decision by council would have no financial impact to the city, and like many forthcoming decisions, would be subject to changes resulting from Bill 112. Next slide, please. Next is item 9.2, Statement of Development Charges Reserve Funds, fiscal year 2022. The Provincial DCs Act requires the treasurer of the municipality to provide council with an annual financial statement relating to development charge bylaws and reserve funds. In the case of Peel, city staff observed that the region's significant negative reserve fund balances after capital commitments present significant risk with respect to the impacts of Bill 23 on the capital program. Next slide, please. Moving on to the next item, we have a staff report regarding external consulting services for asset retirement obligations regarding contract for the supply of external consulting services for phase 1 of the asset retirement obligation adoption project. The regional staff request additional funds for the existing contract with Deloitte to assist with implementation of the public sector accounting standards 3280 asset retirement obligation, which requires public sector entities to set up a liability related to the legal obligation for retiring a tangible capital asset. The City of Brampton is in the process of implementing this standard. Most of the work is being done by city staff with limited engagement from KPMG. Next slide, please. Next, we have item 9.5, Bill 112, Managing Through the Transition Recommendation Report regarding principles for approaching the 2024 budget and existing work plans developed by Peel's executive leadership team. Decisions are to be made in the public interest with regard for municipal restructuring, ensuring value for money, high quality efficient services, and that other municipalities are not unreasonably impacted. The report outlines measures being undertaken by regional staff, including enhancing psychological health benefits for staff, managing community partner and vendor agreements, assurance to investors and credit rating agencies, and delegated authority and a new section in all council reports identifying impacts associated with Bill 112 and highlighted related risks. I would add that Bill 112 is in the final stages of the legislative process this week and is expected to receive royal assent before the legislature breaks for the summer. A more detailed briefing note on this regional report will be distributed to council today. Next slide, please. Item 9.6 relates to the William G. Davis Memorial Sculpture at Peel Art Gallery, Museum and Archives. In the report, regional staff seek council approval for a memorial sculpture in honor of Premier Davis to be installed on the grounds of PAMA. Staff is also seeking council approval for the draft public art monuments policy and guidelines. Upon approval of the report at Regional Council, City of Brampton staff will formalize the provincial funding agreement and issue a call for artist proposals. Next slide, please. The last item on the regional agenda to highlight is item 17.2, Bill 97, Helping Home Buyers Protecting Tenants Act 2023, and proposed provincial planning statement recommendation report. Overall, the comments presented by Peel Region reflect similar comments provided by the city related to the proposed provincial planning statement, namely concerns around the changes to planning for employment, settlement area boundary expansions, reduction in climate change, and active and public transportation policies, and removal of definitions related to affordable housing. The city supports the region's request for additional timing and extension of local municipal official plan review timelines for Peel until after full implementation of Bill 23. The proposed PPS and outcomes of Bill 112 are addressed. The city expressed concerns in our comments on the ability to meet the tight timelines of implementation for Brampton Plan, with the new PPS planned for release in fall 2023, and timelines for official plan reviews required to meet current deadlines. As the city commented last week, this requires Brampton Plan to be adopted by November 2023. The city didn't put forward comments regarding a request for change in deadline for refunding planning fees to January 2025. However, the city supports the region's request to delay the refunding of planning fees date to the Peel dissolution timeline of January 1st, 2025. This will support transition with the loss of regional planning authority. The city supports and aligns with the region's comments on the need for minister zoning orders to conform to local official plans, as this removes the policy basis for requiring technical studies, planning, design, and servicing considerations that are integral to building safe, healthy, incomplete communities. Next slide, please. Moving on to provincial updates. First, we have a detailed update on the status of Bill 112. On Wednesday, May 31st, the legislature passed a time allocation motion that resulted in Bill 112 skipping the committee process. Late yesterday, the government passed third reading of the legislation. As mentioned, the legislation is expected to receive royal assent later this week and become law. Next slide, please. Earlier this week, Bill 97, the Helping Home Buyers Protecting Tenants Act, passed third reading. The city, again, this piece of legislation is expected to receive royal assent and become law later this week. Next slide, please. Thursday, June 8th is the last sitting day of the current legislative session, followed by summer recess. As already mentioned, Bill 97 and Bill 112 are expected to become law later this week. Also, the legislative committees are conducting reviews of the government spending estimates for the 2023-2024 fiscal year, including healthcare, long-term care, infrastructure, finance, economic development. After the summer recess, the House will resume for the fall session on Monday, September 11th. Next slide, please. In federal updates, I want to flag for you an announcement by the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship, launching the category-based selection for Canada's Economic Immigration Management System Express Entry Program. This year, category-based selection invitations will focus on candidates who meet Canada's changing economic and labor market needs, including healthcare, science and technology, engineering, and mathematics. This week, we have not identified any significant AMO or FCM updates, and thank you. That concludes today's presentation.
Thank you, Chris. I have Deputy Mayor Singh on the board.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask the clerk to actually remove my in-camera item. It was kind of related to this, but I'd like to remove it. So can I open up the agenda to do that right now?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it could be just a 2/3 vote to reopen the agenda to withdraw the added item 15.2.
Yep.
Okay, then we will do that at this point. If I have the motion to open the agenda and remove the item that was put forward by Deputy Mayor Singh. So all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, then that motion carries. Thank you. No further questions for Chris. Thank you so much. Our next item is item 8.5 for Council. My apologies. I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Singh to receive Chris's presentation. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, and that motion carries. Our next item is item 8.5, Council Question Period for the Economic Development section of the agenda. Do any members have any questions? Seeing none, we will move on to the public question period. If there's any questions from the public regarding the economic development section of the agenda. And seeing none, we will move on from that, and I will pass the chair over to Councillor Broad to chair the corporate services section of the committee.
Thank you. Our next item is 9.5, Councillor Question Period for the corporate service section. Do any members have any questions regarding the corporate service section?
Through you, Chair Brar, my apologies. There was the added item from Councillor Santos, Pride Month and Crosswalk, I believe it was, under 9.3.1.
9.3. Councillor Santos?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so it's Pride Month this month, and I recall in the previous term of council, we discussed the idea of having a rainbow crosswalk somewhere located in downtown. But I believe, and if staff can clarify, that no specific direction was given to actually proceed with that crosswalk.
Through the chair, I can confirm no formal direction was provided.
So I don't know what happened in that conversation and why there was no direction. That being said, I would like to provide that direction. We had a fantastic celebration on Sunday, and I'm seeing on social media the town of Aurora, the town of Orangeville, like various Peterborough, various places where they are recognizing Pride through crosswalks and various other means, and just wondering, I guess, referring this back to staff, how we can proceed. Do we have enough time to do something for this month?
Through the chair to Councillor Santos, we can report back as early as next week.
Okay.
With the proposed locations and timing.
Okay, so why don't we do that for staff to report back accordingly related to the installation of Pride murals, artwork. What do we call it last term?
Trying to think of the name.
Crosswalks.
Crosswalks.
Crosswalks, and to report back at council next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Santos. So we have a motion moved by Councillor Santos that the staff be requested to report to the June 14, 2023 meeting of council with regard to the Pride-related murals and crosswalk artwork. All in favor? All opposed? Thanks. The motion carries. Our next item is 9.5, council question period for this section. Do any members have any questions? Are there any members? Seeing none, we'll move on. Now we can deal with item 9.6, public question period. Are there any questions from the public or online? Perfect. Now I'll pass the chair to Councillor Vicente to chair the Public Works and Engineering section of the committee agenda. Thank you. We'll just give a couple minutes. Councillor Vicente. Can we check if Councillor Vicente is online?
That's how you leave it.
Through you, Chair Brar, perhaps we can move on to the next section, and then we'll come back to Public Works, which will be Community Services section.
Okay. So our next item section is a community service section. I will now pass that to Councillor Santos. Thank you.
Thank you, and we are now in the community services section. I believe we already dealt with the motion 11.3.2 accordingly, and there are no other items other than councillor question period. Do any members have any questions? Oh, discussion, oh, I apologize. Added item, discussion at the request of Mayor Brown, who is here regarding International Yoga Day. Over to you, Mayor.
So International Yoga Day is coming up shortly. I think it's June 23rd, 21st. And the organization that does this each year at Rosalie Park mentioned that in past years, there hasn't been a charge for Rosalie Park, but they were told there's a rental fee this year. I guess in past years, the city waived it. If there is a rental fee for Rosalie Park, I suggest we waive it. I know the city of Mississauga hosts this event at their Celebration Square and help promote it too. And I'm not sure what the motion would be, but just say if there's a rental fee for Rosalie Park, they bring their own yoga mats, that we waive it, and any support we can provide to help promote it. Maybe we could put it up, maybe the social towel could go up at Garden Square and we could be shared with councillors. International Yoga Day is widely popular in our city, and a lot of people don't know that they have this event at Rosalie Park. So just a question, is there anyone on our staff that work with them or has worked with them in the past? Kelly, maybe your team might have?
Through the chair, I have worked with the organization in the past under tourism and festivals and events, so they may have gone through that pathway again. The city is planning an International Yoga Day through recreation, but we can certainly go back and talk to the tourism and special events team for more detail on this one.
Okay. Yeah, and so with this, there any rental fee associated with Rosalie Park for observers of the International Yoga Day be waived, and that the staff help promote? works with you, Jason? Maybe just like the promotion, the flyer on at Gardner Square leading up to the event. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Tour.
What is that cost? That's the rental cost. How much is that cost associated with that rental?
Through the chair, I don't have that information in front of me, but I can ask staff.
Would that be under community services?
Thank you, Councillor
at this
Tour. So why
time-
don't we, maybe at the end of council, get that number? I know that there are different recreation fees for different parks, et cetera, so I wouldn't expect staff to know off the top of their head how much that is.
They haven't been charged in the past.
So if we can just look at the schedule and the rates, and then at the end of council, get that number. So, Councillor Tour, did you want to hold off for now, or for this motion until we get that cost? Because then we could be very specific in the motion about the cost itself. Or did you want to continue with this now? I don't think it will be. I think it's pretty nominal. Okay, very good. So, members of council, you have a motion before you, moved by Mayor Brown. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That carries, and staff will come back at the end of council with that particular response for Councillor Tour. Next item is councillor question period. There are no questions from members of council at this time. Public question period. Anyone in the gallery or online? Nothing from the public regarding questions on this section. Next item is legislative services, and we don't have any particular items in the agenda nor added in legislative services. Councillors, do you have any questions related to legislative services? Seeing none. Public question period. Mr. Clerk, any questions regarding legislative services? There are no questions, which brings us back to Public Works. Councillor Vicente is not available right now to chair. I would ask if members are okay for Councillor Palleschi to chair this section. Okay, Councillor Palleschi, go ahead. You're chairing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 10.2.1 was held by myself, and the reason for this hold is we just went through budget. We put $3 million in for design of 2 buildings. I can't believe that there's $2 million going in for a design or consulting of a retrofit of an existing building. It is getting out of hand. I don't know how I can justify supporting something like that when I don't know what it takes for a consulting service to come in and do any kind of design of a retrofit. Like we're talking about a retrofit, but $2 million. So not to hold up this report for too long, because I know that there's some timing issues with respect to this. I'm going to ask that this go back to staff and for staff to come back with, because there's nothing in there about, what the consulting, I think that would be a separate report anyways, consulting design for something like this, and I don't expect to have that level of detail in a report like this, but I'm going to ask staff to come back with some kind of presentation to council to educate us on $2 million, what would a consultant be doing for $2 million?
Through the chair, Councilor Palleschi, this is an estimate of the cost at this point. So it's based on a retrofit in terms of the energy retrofit. And there are 2 components involved. One is the energy retrofit, but there's also the SOGR works, which are 6 years into the future that we're trying to pull back into the performance of this project currently. So I just want to emphasize it's an estimate.
It's an estimate.
Yes.
That $2 million.
It hasn't been awarded yet either.
No, I realize that. I read the report, but $2 million that's a big dollar amount for an estimate for a consulting service for a design. When we just went through the budget, we gave $3 million for 2 facilities. that were gonna be co-located, but still. So I can't justify a retrofit of $2 million when, you know, we're designing a whole building for $3 million.
Just for you, the Chair. The performance of engineering works is based on the nature of the work, and some of them are straightforward, some of them are more complicated in terms of the efforts required. And also you have project works which involve several sub-consultants, and each of those sub-consultants would be added to the cost of the overall project.
Okay, so why don't we do this, and not to keep this going any longer, why don't I just ask that we refer this to next council, and you come back with a breakdown of what the $2 million is. I'd like a further breakdown of where that money is gonna be spent and allocated, and I need to justify somehow on the amount of money that we spend on consulting. Thank you to myself. But I see that Councilor Vicente is here. I'll pass the floor over to Councilor Vicente.
Thank you very much, Chair Pelesci. I apologize to all of you. I was upstairs with a group who needed me for a few moments. Next, have Councilor Power.
Thank you, through the chair. Do we know what it would cost for Susan Fennell as a comparison? Because Earnscliffe is a lot smaller than Susan Fennell.
Is somewhere around under $2 million for the same design, detailed feasibility study and the design. And the design is currently ongoing. Yeah.
The number, no?
Yeah, it's around 1.7 to be precise.
Okay.
I have no further questions, so this is being referred back to the next council meeting. All in favor? That carries. Next, we have Councilor question period. Do any members have questions? Seeing none. Public question period. Mr. Clerk, do we have any questions from members of the public?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are none registered online. I don't see anybody present who wishes to come down to ask questions on this section.
Very good. So now I'll pass over to Councilor Santos. Okay, very good. Our next item is referred matters. Does any member have questions with respect to the referred matters list? Seeing none, that carries. And next we have public question period. Mr. Clerk, do we have questions from members of the public with regards to today's agenda?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do not have any questions submitted online. I don't see anybody present who wishes to come down to ask a question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. So next we'll move on to closed session business. Mr. Clerk, can you please summarize the items that we will take in closed session?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to members of the committee, there's only one item for closed session, 15.1, an open meeting exception under section 239(2)(c) and K of the Municipal Act, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, and a position plan procedure criteria or instructions to be applied to any negotiations to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, a property-related matter. And 15.2 was initially added at the beginning of the meeting and was subsequently withdrawn by a vote of committee. So there's only one item to move into closed session on it.
Thank you very much. So members, I'll ask for a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Singh that we go into closed session and we will then resume in 15 minutes. Oh, Councillor Singh, please speak.
For lunch and then resume back, so 12:45.
So we'll recess for 1 hour until 1 o'clock, 12:45. All in favor? That carries.